Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
I think that to think that people are just going to buy a picture of a monkey or a picture of some artwork that somebody scribbled and think that that was going to be worth all kinds of money is ridiculous. But if you're going to go buy something that's really, really cool, why not have the physical and digital experience part of it all combined? And if you've got something really high level proprietary, throw an auction component as part of it. I love it.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we focus on human connection and what brings us together. I'm Moshe Popack, and today, the very lucrative business of memorabilia and collectibles. Brandon Steiner is a sports marketing expert. He's the founder of Steiner Sports and the founder and CEO of Collectible Exchange and the Steiner Agency. Among his many achievements, he's partnered with the New York Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to cultivate their collectibles. He'll share expert insight on how to maximize the value of memorabilia. Before we chat with Brandon, a quick reminder that if you like the show, please subscribe and follow me on social media at mpopack. Now, here's my conversation with Brandon Steiner. Enjoy. Hi, Brandon, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you. Thanks to be here. Appreciate you having me.
So, again, I'm a complete novice when it comes to memorabilia and collectibles. So I want to just educate the listeners and even myself. What is the key difference between memorabilia and collectibles?
Well, not much of a difference between collectibles and memorabilia, but I think the terms got kind of loose lately. You know, I like to think it had something to do with it when I used to run and own and build Steiner Sports. No more of that company, got rid of it, and have a company called Collectible Exchange, which is really more of an eBay. So I really see a much wider version now of collectibles and memorabilia. But, you know, I think the true definition of a collectible is something that's created that's got a limit. I mean, it's not enough. So something that was created that's either extraordinarily unique or something that's limited where there's more demand than supply, and that demand is shorted on purpose. I think that people misunderstand, like, most of the products you create, this is what makes it so difficult for most business people to understand, is you create something, your goal is to sell as much of it as you can. I spent 35 years trying to make a product, create product, and get products where there definitely wouldn't be enough. I shorted the market on everything we made. If I thought we could sell 100, I'd only make 50. Now you're the 51st person, you got to go on the market, and it's become something that's highly sought after, and it's kind of a collectible. So I think, you know, having a proprietary feel to it, something special, something unique, something that tells a story. Memorabilia is a memory. And that's my goal at Collectible Exchange is just constantly recreating memories and helping people sell their stuff to other people. I think some of the best collectors have the most amount of memorabilia all over the place, not sitting in some big company's warehouse. I used to think that, haven't been that big company before. But a lot of people sit with really cool stuff. And there's some really great collectors out there that I'm loving what I'm seeing.
So I love the idea of the basics, you know, from a business perspective, like that basic of supply and demand, you know, creating that, you know, that demand and then just having just enough supply. And that is always the basic fundamentals, the way I see it as far as business. You know, obviously, you had this whole craze also of NFTs, right? So it's like, you know, would you consider that under the box of, you know, it's like one particular NFT, which is a non-fungible token, which represents, I guess, a piece of art. So maybe that makes it a collectible. Would that go under that definition? Because I know also the NFT market completely collapsed, basically. You know, you being in this space, what's your take on NFTs and where we're going to go?
First, my take is that I think the NFT idea was a good idea, but again, everybody wants to make a mountain out of nothing and think they just get rich quick. But the NFT, the concept about being able to build a blockchain and really be able to track where collectibles come from and where it's gone is a brilliant one. It's just that the greed and the trickiness and the scheming was not to my liking, which is why I stayed out of that business up until recently. I think to me, the NFT concept is a physical and experiential. It should be worth two things combined. So you buy something, it'd be great if it came on a blockchain. So now you've got something that you can sell, maybe get dividends down the road if it goes up a lot in value, even after you sell it. my new authentication process that I'll be launching in a couple of months, you're the first person I'm talking about this, will actually have a lot more of a blockchain where there'll be an NFT part to the physical. I think that to think that people are just going to buy a picture of a monkey or a picture of some artwork that somebody scribbled and think that that was going to be worth all kinds of money is ridiculous. But if you're going to go buy something that's really, really cool, why not have the physical and digital experience part of it all combined? And if you've got something really high level proprietary, throw an auction component as part of it. I love it.
And I really like what you're combining, because that was, I think, was the whole issue. It's like this picture and then nothing with a physical, product, and the combination of the two and using the blockchain. But also, and that's why, you look at FTX was centralized. I think it has to be decentralized, where it's verified. That's what the blockchain is, right? It's like everybody's verifying, that this is real, that this is verified. So I like that. And then
people are going to love what I'm doing now with the blockchain. Very, very simple and also extremely inexpensive. We're talking about single-digit dollars that you're adding to this collectible you buy from us. We're going to launch it in, I think, 60 days. So if you go to Collectible Exchange, you want to register, you'll get the notification. But I've always been a disruptor. I'm not going to sit here, listen, I'm not always right, but I'm not here to follow back. I've always been a disruptor, but I've been a patient one. I don't need to just start running through Times Square naked. I mean, it's just sometimes people just do anything to get some attention. To me, I want to do something extremely aggressive, but also be patient because I want it to be right. I want it to have value. I want everything I do to be valuable to people and have value. And I think value is always underrated in today's business. And value is what you can do for someone that they can't do for themselves. Correct. So like if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be like, wow, I could never do that. I can't believe Steiner pulled that off. Exactly. If not, I'm going home. I go on the beach. I can hang out. And that's valuable too. My family may like me being around a little bit more.
And in all business, it sums up, you have to have clarity. What value, to your point, what value am I giving somebody else? And that they're willing to take dollars out of their pocket and pay me because I'm creating this value for them. And I just want to go to on memorabilia now because I'm seeing it so much that nostalgia creates a certain emotion within you, and that's what what you love.
Memories that matter. The average person thinks of 60,000 thoughts in a day. 80% of them are negative. I mean, it's a scary world we live in it. But, the thing about memorabilia is those are memories that matter. It's one of the things I love about the business is why not highlight and focus on the positive memories that you want that they can fill your brain up with, which is kind of why I love the business always having kind of a messed up childhood. Like, let's get to the positive memories and why not have people remember the cool stuff that they've done instead of always focusing in on some of the bad stuff that's happened. And that's true. I mean, you think about it. That's what people
preaching to the choir, by the way. If you look at my cap, that's our brand, #positivity. That's exactly. It's only you are a product of exactly what you focus on. So might as well focus on and do the work intentionally to focus on the positive, glass half full instead of half empty. But I want to ask you, what was the most you've ever heard, whether on a memorabilia or collectible, that someone has ever paid?
I mean, you hear of all these different stories about the trading card, which is a potential another scheme that's going on I'm not too happy about. I mean, I've sold the Don Larson Perfect Game jersey for, I think it was $775,000 for his uniform with Don and Colleen. And that was a great day for me because I know how important that money was. We sold Bob Knight's collection for, I think, $1.5 million. But I've seen, we've seen, stuff go for several $1 million, the Honus Wagner card. It's funny how life is funny, how it's such a trick. But some of the, we always talk about, trying to be perfect, trying to make progress. But some of the biggest mistakes are some of the best sellers in collectibles. Like the best seller that I ever created in collectibles, you would never guess, but is the ball going through Bill Buckner's legs. That was our number one selling collectible that I ever created at Steiner. And Bill Buckner was writing, oops, my bad. And then Mookie would sign it. That was game 6 of the World Series where the Mets came back and won that game. But it's crazy. Like the Honus Wagner card was a mistake card. He didn't want to be involved in the set. It was a cigarette card. It ends up being one of the most valuable cards of all time. I mean, you get any 19 White Sox with a scandal. That stuff goes for a fortune. So, I always say life is just a trick when you talk about memories. I think one day people will be collecting all the steroid users. I bet there'll be a whole collection around that because most of them haven't been signing a lot of stuff. And I'm sure 20, 30 years from now, it'll be hard to find that stuff because nobody really wanted to collect it. It's kind of like not in vogue to do it. So just like people will be collecting, the Redskins stuff because, they don't use that logo anymore. So it's just funny how things work. The business is so upside down and crazy the way people view things. You got to have your head, which I think I'm a little upside down and crazy, to be honest with you. Which is why it's a good business for me.
For you personally, what's your favorite collectible or memorabilia?
That's a good question. I mean, I always felt like it was the first autograph I got, which was Thurman Munson. It was kind of a favorite of mine. The Yankee captain, catcher. I ran into him in a hotel in Boston. My mother took me to see a game at Fenway. But, I know it's going to sound corny, and I've written about this in one of my books. The way I started the collectible company that in the mid-'90s was with Mark Messier. And I just thought I'd come up with this photo. He had this big grin on his face. It was like incredible. And I was like, I got to sign that guy. And I know that I could sign 15,000 of those because we'd all been sitting in the garden waiting for the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup in 1994. And the goal was like 2 grand, and we did it because it was so emotional. All those years, the ups and downs, and even that year, even when they won it, it was very emotional, a lot of twists and turns. So that's like one of my favorites. Mark Messier is one of my favorite humans and players.
Yeah.
And it's given me more joy in our friendship because he was one of those guys, that is so authentic and is a friend you want to have. And at the same time, he's one who really kicked off my memorabilia career. Because at the time, I was just marketing players, which I still do, helping them, signing up the companies to grow them, PR tours, advertising, trade shows. Any way I could boost and grow a company's business, I would find a way to use an athlete. That's what I was doing up to 1995 until Mark and Phil Rizzuto came along. But my favorite is the Mark Messier stuff that we did because I was really just talking out of my ass. Like, I don't know what we were doing, but I was just a diehard Ranger fan, so emotionally messed up because of this win. I was just so happy. I was just creating everything I possibly could have wanted in the 10-year-old in myself and sharing with every Ranger fan. Then all of a sudden it just started spiraling, started going crazy. And hence here we are today.
Yeah, as a teenager, I remember that growing up in New York, those days. And as you're telling the story, again, that positive emotion. And I remember that like just yesterday. Amazing. And I want to give a shout out because my actual favorite bagel, I get the Everything Bagel, and I want to give you a shout out. Tell us the story because you were the discovery man of that, right?
I mean, there are a lot of people that lay claim on the Everything Bagel, but I definitely invented it. But I always tell people your first idea is not your best idea, and certainly hasn't been. I follow this theme throughout my career. Your first idea is the initiator, and usually will lead you to even better and bigger ideas. It's amazing how many people stop when they come up with a good idea and go to lunch and celebrate. When it's first, that's actually when you first want to go to work and you get a little success. It's like getting to first base. Like you don't walk off the field, you get the first base, try to get the second, third, and everything else. So I was delivering newspapers, and when I delivered newspapers, the way I got people to sign up for the paper route was to deliver them milk and bagels. And I had all the women in the neighborhood doing that. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning, help the man. It was just one of the first bagel factories in Brooklyn. So he actually handmade the bagels. And then we deliver all these bagels to these routes all over Brooklyn to supermarkets, delis. So at 4:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I would go down, help the guy. I was right downstairs from my apartment. I lived over a store on Kings Highway. And I go down and help him make the bagels, bake the bagels. And then at 7:30, I deliver my newspapers. And one day I was getting really tired. I couldn't stay awake in school. So the guy said, look, I got a promotion for you. You can work the night job. Now, when I worked the night gig, there was very few bagels to bake. I was just baking them as the customers came in. So I was just bored. I started playing around with all these seasonings, throwing everything on there. And at the end, I had all these seasons, so I just threw it on there. So we tried everything. And that's how we got to the everything. I tried onion and poppy and salt. And it was all these different blends. And this is early in the game. This is 1972. I was like 12, 13 years old at the time. I mean, there was a lot of great inventions since the Everything Bagel, but it just wasn't happening. You had, cinnamon raisin. You had all these different things that started coming out, different versions of the marble, the black and white. I didn't create those, by the way, but I was just came from working at night, doing the night shift. I was bored and I was playing around with all these different versions of bagels, and I had all the seasonings there, and I just plopped them all on there to see how that would feel.
Nothing like a scooped out everything bagel toasted with cream cheese. Favorite.
Absolutely.
And with New York style bagels. That. So I know.
I mean, listen, back in the 70s, it's hard to get a job. So, being able to bake bagels and make bagels throughout junior high school and high school.
Yeah.
If people remember, if they're old enough that are listening, there's a terrible recession going on in the mid 70s, gas crisis and all that. So I always had a job. I was always at bagel bakeries at that time were just starting to sprout out. Now you can get a bagel anywhere. But back in the early 70s and 60s, it was very hard to find a good bagel, let alone a bagel at all.
Wow. So I know So it seems from that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, you had.
By the way, I could go and bake a bagel right now. I'm 63, haven't done anything for 50 years. But I mean, it's amazing how many places I go into that have crappy bagels. People, is it the water in New York? Is it?
No.
I mean, I could go through a whole dissertation.
Very few. No, correct.
Amazing how more people can't figure it out.
The only one for me was H&H Bagels in the city. They have good bagels. They have good bagels. I remember I was like H&H Bagels. I was like always making a pit stop at H&H. But besides it, like I'm here in Florida, hard to find a good bagel.
You know why in Florida? Because so much of the bagel is based on the proofing process, especially when you're making them by hand. And it goes through several versions of the proofing process. And unless somebody is seeing that bagel all the way through, from making the dough to baking it and literally the in-between, more than likely that's how you get the doughy or the not doughy enough bagel. Because in a place like Florida, there's so much humidity, unless you're really gauging the amount of humidity that day. So a bagel easily can get overproofed or underproofed quickly because the bagel goes through 5 or 6 temperature changes. And unless you got somebody who's seen it all the way through that really gives a hoot, you're probably not going to have a great bagel.
See? Now I got the tricks. So, no, because right now, actually, in my house, we're trying to figure out sourdough bread, and it's a journey, and I know nothing about it, but me and my kids we're on that journey. So it's a lot of fun.
You gotta have that steamer in there. You get the special bread thing. You got to put it in with a cover. Yeah.
It's a journey.
But if you get that right, it's really tasty. You won't be able to stop eating it.
You're right. You nailed it exactly on there. If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Common Denominator podcast. My guest is marketing and memorabilia expert Brandon Steiner. Before we return to our conversation, remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and follow me on social media at @Popack. Now, back to the show. I know that your main journey was Steiner Sports, and now you have Steiner Agency, right, and the Collectible Exchange. So tell us a little bit about Steiner Sports, and from what I understand, you sold that business, and then now you're doing the Steiner Agency and the Collectible Exchange.
I mean, I've always marketed players. So that's the Steiner Agency, and I still do that. I help people. I have clients that have been with me for 20, 30 years, and I have so many athlete contacts, it makes sense for them to use me. Steiner Sports I sold in 2000 to a big conglomerate, and I was about to buy it back, and I got into kind of a hostile takeover. It wasn't as big a deal to me other than some of the trickery, which you get into big business, because it was such a great brand. I'm flattered that somebody would go to the length to take it from me. But at the end of the day, I had a new vision of what I wanted to do way before that even happened. I was going to flip Steiner around and make it into this collectible exchange. I felt like there was enough collectibles out there, and people were getting older. And there's never been a more people that are over 60 years old since the beginning of time. So I knew that there was all these older people that were nobody's more of a pack rat and a saver than the baby boomer generation. So I knew they needed an outlet to go sell their stuff. And I was going to convert Steiner into that. And it just, it didn't work out. I love that company. I put my heart and soul into it. It was 30 years into it. And probably, worked with every big name you could imagine. Secured well over 30 million autographs, sold $60 million worth of dirt, sold tens of thousands of bricks and grass. I always had a different view about how to create collectibles and things that I was able to find and create. But I felt like it was time to maybe help people, sell what they had. And then there was a lot of unique collectors around the world that I wanted to be able to collaborate in a really decent, authentic way. I feel like eBay doesn't do that. So if you're sitting with a bunch of collectibles, like, what do you do with it? And I felt like we couldn't open up Steiner to that. Steiner, that brand was really about creating authentic, correct collectibles. And I feel like there was enough out there. It was almost starting to be too much. So I was kind of bored with that process. It's hard to go blow up something you built, which only I have the balls to do. It's in my second book, You Gotta Have Balls. So I was ready to blow up what I built. I mean, I have nobody to blame for that concept. I feel like getting played out, or it just is what it was, and come up with something new. It's what my mother always taught me, is to never stop and always serve and solve. And that's kind of where I was headed. I'm kind of bummed that I kind of lost my name in that transition. You know, Steiner, there's no Steiner and Steiner. It's weird. But, you know, people have really been, what's amazing, all the athletes have made tens of millions of dollars, literally. But the customers have really been loyal to me. I mean, it's amazing how many customers I've touched with meet and greets and all these experiential stuff that I've done. And we're bringing some of that back, obviously. And so, you know, I love my customers, and anybody listening out there, besides my gratitude, thank you. I would say, if you have a business, just remember the most important thing always has to be the most important thing, and that's your customers.
Yeah.
And after you take care of your customers and figure out what they need and what they really want, which is everything, that customer, you know, the value proposition, only then can you get into quality of product and actually trying to be the best at what you do. By understanding what your customer needs and understanding what your customer wants and delivering it every day, all day, with your heart, your soul, with all your authentication you could possibly have. And when you do that for people, they'll love you and appreciate you. And your brand, you know, the Brandon Steiner brand is flattering. It's I always wanted to do something when I was a kid that would be meaningful. And I feel like I created something that was meaningful.
And I know you don't just say it with words, but you also give back to the community. I know you have the Family Services of Westchester, and you sit on the board of White Plains Hospital. So you actually give your time, your energy, dollars to give back to the community. So thank you for that.
Well, what I would say is, I mean, a lot of people do that. And what I would say is that, first of all, everything I do at this juncture has a charity component. It's not about my charities, though. I could do a lot more good with the athletes and the teams and talent that I'm working with, and pushing their charities forward as opposed to pushing my small initiatives. I'm really not in the charity business. I'm in the business of supporting charities. And now I'm in a position, very grateful, to really support and make sure that everything I do has a charity component. And the thing I'd say also is, like, there's only two reasons why you're here.
Yeah.
One of them is to get better and to grow and learn and do more, which we've done really successfully as a human race. When you think about how far we've come, especially over the last 10, 15 years, it's remarkable. But if you're not growing, you're not getting better, you're missing the whole boat of you being here. I mean, there are thousands of species. None of them get better. Your goldfish, your dog, your cat, bear, a lion, a bird, none of them ever is going to get better. You can wake up in the morning, your dog is never reading the paper, having fed itself, walked itself. It's never happening. The goldfish is never doing backflips in the fish tank. You know, those are all species that cannot grow and adapt and adjust, but humans can. So if you're not adapting and adjusting and dealing with the pressures and dealing with the challenges of life, you're missing the whole boat of living life. And then the second reason you're here, and the only two reasons, is to help others. So, you know, before I had some wealth and had some success, I would always had an initiative that my mother pushed me on, which was to help as many people as you can, as often as you can, and expect nothing back. So most of the charity work I do is under the radar. I don't even need people to know. It doesn't matter, because the joy I get from that, and also realizing that's why I'm here, keeps me motivated, keeps me pushing to do more.
Hopefully people keep paying that forward. I mean, I think that's amazing. Give with nothing, with expecting nothing in return. I think that's an amazing piece of advice. And what comes to the top of your mind? I know you exude gratitude. So I'm looking at you, I'm hearing your story, and I know that. But first thing that comes to your mind on what you're most grateful for?
I'm most grateful for the opportunity. I've grown up as poor as I am, as I grew up. And at the same time, I've been able to see both sides of the fence and realize that there's not that much of a fundamental difference between having a lot of money and not having that much money at all. What's important is that you have people around you that really care about you and love you. and you have your health. And listen, money will not buy you happiness. We've all heard it a million times. It'll decrease your unhappiness. So I'm not giving my money back. It has decreased many of my unhappy moments. I drive a nice car instead of having to change a flat tire every 3 weeks, and I get nice air conditioning. So, it'll decrease your unhappiness. But I think that what I'm most grateful for is really learning what's important and who's important, and knowing what's important and who's important, doing what's important for who's important every day. And I think if you can stay focused on that, from a business standpoint and a personal standpoint, you can find a lot of joy. I think when you get sidetracked and you start thinking about things that, you start thinking about that's all about you. I mean, there's so many people on this planet. There's a lot of ways that a lot of things can go, and most of it's not under our control, is how I feel about it. So I'm grateful for the path that I've been chosen to take, and I'm doing the best I can with it. I'm trying to take advantage of it to make an impact and to be a good person, as well as to help other people as much as I can.
Yeah. No, I think the greatest line that I heard was that each person you come in contact with, you have to, when they walk away from you, that you've instilled in them a better place instead of, right? That they feel better being around you.
I hear all the time, if I could change one life, whoa. I'm not here to change one life. I'm not here, that sounds sexy. I'm here to have an impact on as many lives as I can. If I only impacted one life, still be better than impacting none, but that would not be a fulfilling position for me. That's not the road I was going down. So, I like to think big. My mom, my second book is You Gotta Have Balls. And my mom was always like, make a big impact, be relentless, be fearless, and don't stop. Your first idea is not your best idea. Be a solution-based business person. Help people serve and solve, and the sales will take care of themselves. And that's what I feel like. I really do live by this mantra, which is do as much as I can for as many people as I can, as often as I can, and expect nothing back. And I let everything else take care of itself. Amazing. And I'm good. I'm really happy with that mantra. I've done a lot of stuff for a lot of people. I may never even hear from them ever again. It's true. There is not a give and get here. That's not me. And I've done a lot of stuff for people, and it's been amazing, the relationships I've created. So, either you trust that strategy and trust that theory, or you don't. But I think helping people is not a burden. It really is an opportunity to lead you to share joy.
And
until you give real help to someone, we're expecting nothing back. Completely walk away. They don't even know you've done anything, and you feel the joy. You'll understand what I'm talking about. And it's a shame that I wish a lot of people more would try it, because it's a little bit of an adult, grown-up thing to do, but it's amazing.
Yes, I feel it completely. And what's something about you that people don't know?
Well, I still play basketball at 63. I'm still half illiterate, even though I've written 3 books and right now 4th, and God knows how many hundreds of blogs. I can't barely read and write, which I'm not that proud of, but it just shows you can't let an obstacle get in the way of ultimately whatever you want to do. And, I'm still romantic, still love the hell out of my wife. That's 35 years of marriage, and I still think she's the best, most beautiful woman on the planet, and I'm grateful for that too.
I definitely feel that. This has been a tremendous interview, and I really appreciate it, Brandon. It's really great, and I wish you only blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it, and call anytime, man. And,
thank you.
I'm a good social media guy. That's another thing people don't know. I'm 63. I'm schooling the kids in my office how to do social media. That's the problem. The kids think they got the social media. No, you got to learn how to work social media and how it works, and really dig down into it. And none of my friends know how to do what I can do on social media. It's unbelievable. So anyway, if you do reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever it is. But sure. I love social media. I think it's a great way to interact. And thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Brandon. All the best. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Brandon Steiner. To catch up on old episodes, and we've done over 100 shows now, head to MoshePopack.com or search Common Denominator on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And for more content that will inspire you and hopefully brighten your day, follow me on social media at @MPopack. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.